10 signs of emotionally difficult people. Many of you have encountered such people with whom it is very difficult to build relationships. This can happen both at work and in close relationships. And today I will tell you about specific signs of emotionally difficult people, which, in principle, these signs are indicative of an emotionally unstable personality disorder, or, as we more commonly refer to it as a possible disorder, personality is one and the same. So if you have 5 out of these 10 signs, it would mean that it is possible. Well, to make such a diagnosis as emotionally unstable disorder, so moving forward, and as always, I want to introduce myself. My name is Yulia Latunenko. I have been working as a psychologist for almost 19 years as a family psychologist, individual psychologist, and also helping people who have psychosomatic disorders. So it's the first sign. People with emotionally unstable personality disorder desperately avoid the feeling of abandonment, loneliness. Precisely when they feel abandoned, maybe not alone, they find loneliness hard to endure, although more often than not they avoid being alone. They are constantly in some toxic relationships, but this thought that I have been abandoned is a very destructive situation, destructive, an experience for such a person. Therefore, they will try and desperately just resist as the partner so that they do not leave them, such a person. Why are these people afraid of the experience of abandonment? Because at some point in childhood, they were mortally frightened, maybe by the mother's coldness, maybe by the mother's neglect, or the break in emotional contact with the mother. Therefore, when they grow up, they forget the very situation of the break in contact, but this experience, I was abandoned, is experienced by people as if a part of their body was cut off, or it is experienced as a fear of death. Even this is how a small child experiences abandonment by the mother. The second sign of emotionally unstable personality disorder is that such people constantly experience some tension and wave-like fluctuations in personal relationships. They either idealize the person or devalue them, and it fluctuates from "don't leave me because I can't live without you" to when they receive everything, love and attention. They can devalue and ignore, try to isolate themselves, but they know that the person will not leave them because it's all done very manipulatively, and such people are very prone to manipulation. It is characteristic of them that they can invade a person's space, violate the boundaries of a military person, and they can also appear very indifferent and even cruel. Such people find it very difficult to undergo processes like separation, firstly from their parents and secondly from their partners and their children. For them, it's such a deadly thing, experienced with great difficulty, and it seems to them that the whole world is collapsing when they lose someone. That is, these are very dependent people and very manipulative. Such people are very dependent on others. They rely on their opinions about themselves, on their evaluations, and this also complicates life greatly. This fluctuation when they idealize and desire closeness with a person, and then they push this person away, crossing out what was good and positive in the relationship because something small displeased them, something deviated from their script or how they imagined it, how they expected from the partner. If they deviated from these expectations, such a person can simply cross everything out. And that's it, you become enemy number one. Their whole life, such people dedicate to the search, the endless search for the ideal partner who will be both a mother and a father to them, that is a good and kind parent, who will take care of them for life. The third sign is dark identity disturbance. That is, such a person does not actually have a stable idea of who they are, what they are like, and they perceive their character traits as unstable. That is, they can idealize and devalue themselves just as they do with other people. And what they think about themselves heavily depends on what others think about this person. Other people, that is, they maintain their self-esteem only when there is an opportunity to make a very positive impression on other people. All of this fluctuates greatly for this person and leads to suffering. And they don't know who they are, constantly trying to pretend to be someone else and fearing that at any moment they might be exposed. This is the well-known imposter syndrome. This is suffered by very often people with emotionally unstable personality development. The fourth sign is impulsivity in at least two areas, which I will list for you now. For example, the use of psychoactive substances, including alcohol, drugs, and medical preparations, gambling addiction, promiscuity in sexual relationships, meaning today one partner, tomorrow another, and, even a dependency on sexual relationships. Reckless driving, which is when people overtake on the roads, break the rules. Very often, this also includes shoplifting. Shopping addiction, meaning excessive spending in stores or compulsive overeating. The reason here is limited self-control and a need for immediate reward, immediate pleasure, satisfaction. These are the kind of people who they directly set a goal for themselves, pleasure, entertainment, some very instant gratifications when their serotonin, dopamine levels spike. And after they experience such a high, elevated mood, after this they experience a crash. They can even fall into a depressive state. And such impulsiveness can be intensified in turbulent, unstable, conflictual relationships, whether personal or at work. That is, if two of those I mentioned, signs such impulsive relationships, impulsive, reactive actions in at least two of the areas I listed, should be among the signs. The fifth criterion is repeated suicidal intentions, attempts. In many cases, they are demonstrative and manipulative, but sometimes they can lead to successful suicide. So when we say, oh, that person is manipulating with suicide, when they just say it, they might be manipulating, but when they already makes attempts, at any moment this attempt can turn out to be successful. And this is very dangerous. Also, in the fifth sign, there is self-harming behavior. This is when a person I already mentioned that the use of alcohol and psychoactive substances is also self-harming behavior, but here it means that a person harms their body. They may cut or burn themselves. If this criterion is present, it is even considered a hallmark of borderline personality disorder. That is, if this is present, then 100% the person has borderline disorder. But we do not consider teenagers here because they are all in a very unstable state, which is biologically determined. We take that into account. More so adults after the teenage years. So, the sixth sign of emotionally unstable personality disorder. This is emotional instability due to the fact that a person's mood changes very drastically. It can be that just a moment ago the person was laughing loudly. Suddenly, their mood drops. They even fall into depression. It can fluctuate very quickly. It can change like this from a few hours to a few days. The seventh sign is a constant feeling of emptiness. The person feels such an internal void that they try to fill with something, whether it's love, sex, drugs, alcohol, or work, and they just become so dependent on all these external factors because they do not want to face their emptiness, in which a person experiences such existential anxiety, a sense of worthlessness, life, a certain uselessness, loneliness. The eighth sign, this is uncontrolled anger, such as unpredictable, inappropriate, inadequate, that is the stimulus, does not correspond to the intensity of the anger manifestation. A person may show some irritation all the time, be angry at some very trivial things that in principle do not cause such reactions in a normally healthy person. Even irritation can escalate to such a level that a person may start fights. If such a person has children, they may bully the children and even hit them. It may not always be emotional bullying because children are such weak members of the family who cannot fight back, and a person who cannot control themselves will look for that outlet into which they will try to channel their anger. Anger can even reach the level of rage, and such people direct this rage at their loved ones. It can be said here that they most need attention and love, but with such behavior, they often push others away and then suffer from loneliness themselves. Ninth sign. During stress, such people experience bouts of paranoia. These people feel that everyone is hostile towards them. In this way, they detach their hostility and project it onto others. They feel that everyone wants to harm them in some way, that there are plots and intrigues against them, and it will seem to them that everything that happens around them is somehow related to their persona. Such a fixation on oneself and a very strong fear, paranoid, which temporarily arises when a person experiences stress either at work or in stress in personal relationships. But what is characteristic is that this agitated and suspicious behavior then disappears and the person behaves like a normal person. That is, these manifestations are temporary. They occur in phases. And the last 10th sign of an emotionally unstable personality disorder. This is the inability to take responsibility for one's actions, feelings, and health. Such a person constantly blames others. And a word like responsibility for a person with an emotionally unstable or borderline personality disorder is like a red rag to an angry bull. Now you know all these signs? And I think that everyone who forms close relationships with others should have this information to understand what to expect in the future. And finally, I would like to note that there are still many such debates going on. Whether emotionally unstable personality disorder, or borderline as we call it, is genetic, or if it is something that the person acquires during development through negligent parenting. I believe that both statements are true. There are some cases where a person has a genetic basis for this disorder. In other cases, emotionally unstable. Personality disorder is formed as a result of traumatic events in childhood during a person's development.